You can't hide from me forever. Derek Hawthorne's voice cut through the night air as Claire Bennett froze, clutching the baby monitor like a lifeline. The rain was relentless, hammering the driveway and turning the world into a blur of silver streaks. Claire's sleeves rode up slightly as she adjusted the blanket around the child, and Derek's eyes caught the pale scars etched across her forearms. She flinched instinctively, wishing she could melt into the shadows, but the streetlight betrayed her, highlighting every detail. Derek stepped closer, each footfall precise, measured, commanding without a word. "What happened here?" he asked, his tone cold but not unkind, and the words seemed to stretch, carrying weight across the soaked asphalt. Claire swallowed, her throat dry, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. I'm fine. It's nothing," she whispered, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. Derek's gaze didn't waver. It scanned the lines, the texture of her skin, the faint redness around the marks, piecing together a story she hadn't dared to tell anyone. The sound of the rain was suddenly deafening, each drop slapping against the baby monitor, the car roofs, the asphalt, echoing in Claire's ears, heightening the tension. She tried to adjust the blanket again, to cover the scars, to assert control, but Derek's shadow fell over her, and for a moment she felt the immensity of his presence, the quiet power that radiated from him like heat from a forge. "You shouldn't be alone out here," he said softly, the edge of command in his words softened by a trace of concern. Her eyes flickered up to meet his, searching, wary, measuring, and something in that gaze, intense, calculating, unyielding, made her catch her breath. She noticed how the rainwater glistened on his dark hair, how the tailored suit clung in a way that suggested discipline and precision, how even his stance, relaxed but alert, radiated authority. Claire's pulse accelerated, and she realized that this was more than curiosity, more than simple concern. Derek's presence filled the space between them, drawing the world away until it was just the three of them, the baby, her, and him. The wind whipped around the corner of the building, tugging at her hair, and Derek instinctively moved a step closer, his shadow enveloping her protectively. For a moment, Claire allowed herself to imagine safety, a rare and delicate sensation she hadn't felt in years. Then the subtle sound of movement, a neighbor returning, a car pulling out, reminded her of the night's fragility, and the weight of vulnerability pressed down on her. Derek's voice was lower now, intimate but steady. "You don't have to hide anymore, Claire. You're not alone." The words wrapped around her like a shield, and though she couldn't yet fully trust, a spark of something she hadn't dared to acknowledge flared within. The rain continued, relentless, but she didn't notice. All that mattered was the way his eyes lingered on her scars, on the history they carried, on the strength and the pain intertwined. And as Derek extended a hand, the gesture both commanding and protective, Claire hesitated, caught between instinct to retreat and the strange, undeniable sense of safety he offered, a promise that tonight would change everything, though she didn't yet know how. The street was quiet now, the rain having softened into a gentle drizzle that pattered against the windows of the brownstone where Claire Bennett lived. She led the baby inside, her steps tentative, each movement measured as if she feared being watched even now. Derek Hawthorne followed closely behind, his presence like a shadow that neither rushed nor intruded but made her aware of every breath she took. The apartment smelled faintly of warm milk and laundry detergent, a homely scent that contrasted sharply with the night outside, yet she felt exposed under his gaze, the kind of gaze that could read every hidden corner of a life. She set the child in the crib with hands that were careful and precise, the rhythm of her motions almost meditative. Derek remained at the doorway, silent, watching her, as if the smallest detail might tell him a story he needed to understand. Claire wiped her hands on her apron, suddenly aware of the subtle tension in her muscles, the lingering aches from days of endless care and worry. The scars on her forearms ached faintly, a dull reminder of things past, things she had kept to herself. Derek finally spoke, low, deliberate. "You carry more than anyone should have to. You do not have to do it alone." His words were simple but carried weight, a promise that was more felt than understood. She turned, her green eyes meeting his, searching for meaning, for judgment, for reassurance, and found none of those. Instead, she found. Recognition, a quiet acknowledgment that he saw her, truly saw her. She hesitated, wanting to retreat, yet the warmth in his voice and the steadiness of his posture anchored her, if only slightly. Derek took a step closer, not to corner, but to create proximity that was safe, intentional, a protective presence. The apartment seemed smaller, more intimate, the shadows of the corners deepening the contrast between the quiet inside and the storm that had passed. Claire exhaled slowly, trying to release some of the tension she had carried for months, and as she did, she noticed the way Derek's eyes softened just enough to let her know he understood the complexity of her life, the hidden struggles, the burdens she bore in silence. She spoke then, voice barely above a whisper. "It is always like this, trying to keep everything together, trying to be strong for everyone else." Derek nodded, a subtle gesture, acknowledging without judgment, and in that silence, a fragile understanding formed. He moved to the window, pulling the curtain slightly to reveal the quiet street below, then turned back to her with a calm certainty that suggested he was already forming plans, solutions she could not yet see. Claire felt the weight of vulnerability and relief intertwine, a strange sense of safety she had not known in years, tempered by the awareness that her life was now observed by someone who did not merely glance, but considered, assessed, and intended to act on what he knew. The rain had stopped entirely, leaving the night fresh and clean, and yet within the apartment, the tension lingered, not as threat but as connection, a bridge between two lives intersecting in unexpected ways. Derek finally broke the silence again, quieter this time, almost reflective. "You will not have to face it alone, Claire. Not anymore." She nodded, the simple words resonating through her chest, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself a fraction of trust, the faintest ember of hope that the coming days might be different, that the shadows of the past could begin to lift, if only gradually, as the night held them both in a moment of stillness, understanding, and unspoken promise. Claire Bennett moved quietly through the apartment, carrying a tray with a steaming cup of herbal tea, her hands still slightly trembling from the encounter earlier. Derek Hawthorne remained. Near the doorway, his posture relaxed but attentive, eyes never leaving her, as if tracking the subtle shifts in her expression and movements. The soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the wooden floor under Claire's feet filled the silence, creating a calm yet charged atmosphere. She placed the tea on the small kitchen table and leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly, feeling the tension in her shoulders begin to ease just a fraction. Derek stepped closer, the sound of his shoes muffled against the carpet, and tilted his head slightly, observing the way she held herself, noting both the strength and the fragility beneath. "You work too hard," he said, his voice low, deliberate, carrying a weight that made her pause and look up. Her green eyes met his, searching for judgment and finding none, only a steady acknowledgment that she had been seen, truly seen, in a way no one had allowed for years. The baby monitor crackled softly in the background, a reminder of the responsibility she carried alone, and Derek's gaze softened imperceptibly as he processed the quiet burden she bore. Claire spoke, voice quiet but steady. "I am used to taking care of things, making sure nothing goes wrong. It is easier to handle it myself." Derek's response was a simple nod, almost imperceptible, yet it carried the recognition that her independence was both admirable and exhausting. He moved slightly, creating space between them that felt protective without oppressive, allowing her autonomy while subtly signaling his presence as a buffer against the uncertainties outside. Claire's mind raced, her thoughts colliding with the unusual sense of calm that Derek's presence inspired, a paradoxical mixture of safety and tension. The rain had stopped entirely outside, leaving the street glistening under the soft glow of streetlights, reflections shimmering in puddles, and the night carried a quiet serenity that contrasted sharply with the heightened awareness within the apartment. Derek's eyes followed her movements as she adjusted the blanket over the crib once more, and he spoke again, his tone almost conversational now, yet still imbued with quiet authority. "You do not have to carry everything alone. There are ways to make it lighter." Claire hesitated, her fingers brushing over the faint scars that ran along her forearms, the reminders of past struggles she had long concealed, and for the first time, she considered that perhaps sharing the weight might not be a weakness, but a choice. The apartment seemed to breathe with them, walls echoing the subtle cadence of their interaction, and the tension between independence and reliance created a fragile connection, a bridge between the life she had led and the possibility of something steadier, safer, and quietly powerful. Claire glanced up again, catching Derek's gaze, and found in it not the intrusion she had feared but a deliberate attentiveness, a promise that he would act if needed, yet allow her to maintain her dignity and control. The warmth from the tea on the table, the soft creaks of the floor, and the faint hum of the city beyond combined into a moment suspended in time, a brief yet potent sense of safety and understanding. Derek finally offered a small, reassuring nod, and Claire felt the weight of exhaustion and vigilance in her shoulders ease slightly, knowing that for the first night in a long time, she was not alone, and that the presence standing quietly in her apartment was both a sentinel and a witness to her resilience, ready to step in without taking over, allowing the night to unfold with a cautious, shared trust that hinted at the days to come. The night deepened outside the brownstone, the streets glistening under the soft glow of the streetlights, casting long reflections across the wet pavement. Claire Bennett moved toward the living room, carrying a folded blanket, the faint scent of lavender clinging to the fabric, a small comfort amid the tension she had carried for months. Derek Hawthorne followed, silent and deliberate, his gaze tracking her movements with a precision that made her acutely aware of every small motion, every shift of weight, every breath. She set the blanket on the couch, arranging it carefully, and paused, feeling the faint ache in her forearms, the lingering discomfort of the scars she had tried to forget. Derek's presence was steady, unintrusive, yet commanding, filling the space without crowding it, a balance that made her feel both observed and safe. "You have been carrying too much for too long," he said quietly, almost conversationally, the words gentle yet weighted with an unspoken understanding. Claire looked at him, her green eyes reflecting the soft lamplight, searching for judgment and finding only recognition, a mirror to the resilience she had maintained in solitude. She moved to the small table by the window, straightening a few papers, and felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly, the sound of the rain that had stopped earlier replaced by the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing by on the street. Derek stepped closer, his movements calm, deliberate, the soft click of his shoes on the hardwood floor almost inaudible, yet it made her pause, drawing her attention to the rhythm of his presence. "You do not have to face everything alone," he continued, his voice steady, warm, carrying a quiet authority that did not demand but offered. Claire's hands brushed over the table edge, lingering on the smooth wood as she processed his words, the idea of support foreign yet not unwelcome. The apartment seemed to expand and contract with their interaction, the space between them a delicate balance of distance and connection. Claire exhaled slowly, the warmth of the blanket she had placed, the gentle light, and the quiet of the night creating a fragile sense of security. Derek's eyes followed her, noting the subtle shift in posture, the way her fingers flexed and relaxed, the tiny movements that revealed tension and weariness. She turned slightly to meet his gaze again, the green of her eyes catching the lamplight, a flicker of uncertainty softened by curiosity. Derek's stance relaxed imperceptibly, a subtle invitation to trust, a promise held in quiet observation. The soft fabric of the blanket, the faint smell of lavender, and the muted hum of the appliances created a cocoon of normalcy around them, a temporary reprieve from the demands of the outside world. Claire felt a flutter of relief, cautious and tentative, yet undeniable, as if the apartment itself had acknowledged the presence of someone she could lean on without fear. Derek's voice broke the silence once more, lower this time, almost reflective. "We will figure this out together, one step at a time." Claire nodded, her posture easing, the weight of solitude lightened slightly by the certainty in his tone. The night stretched quietly around them, the city beyond the windows distant and softened, and within the apartment, the space was charged with a sense of calm vigilance, a shared awareness that this moment, though ordinary in its trappings, marked the beginning of a subtle yet profound shift in both their lives, the start of trust, understanding, and a cautious promise of protection that would linger beyond the quiet of this single evening. Claire Bennett moved toward the small bookshelf by the window, her fingers brushing over the spines of well-worn books, the faint scent of old paper and vanilla lingering in the air. Derek Hawthorne remained in the center of the room, his posture steady, his eyes tracing her every motion, taking in the subtleties of her presence, the slight tremble in her hands, the careful way she arranged the books, the way she kept her movements controlled as if preparing for an unseen scrutiny. The rain had stopped entirely, leaving the city streets quiet, reflections of streetlights dancing in puddles outside the tall windows. Claire inhaled slowly, allowing the warmth of the apartment to seep into her tense muscles, the silence heavy but not oppressive, punctuated only by the faint ticking of a wall clock. Derek took a deliberate step closer, the sound almost imperceptible, and she felt the subtle shift in the room's atmosphere, a gentle pressure that was reassuring without being intrusive. "You think too much of what is expected of you," he said, his voice calm, low, carrying a measured certainty. Claire looked up, startled for a fraction of a second, green eyes meeting the intense blue of his, a flicker of curiosity and caution intertwined. She set the last book on the shelf and turned slightly to face him, her posture straightening, sensing the unspoken encouragement in his gaze. The quiet warmth of the lamp by the couch cast soft shadows across the room, illuminating the faint lines of her face and the lingering traces of past struggles. Derek moved his hand slightly, gesturing toward the small chair near the coffee table, inviting without imposing, a silent acknowledgment that she could take a moment for herself. Claire hesitated, then settled into the chair, the blanket draped over her knees, the soft fabric providing a minor comfort. Derek remained standing, a quiet sentinel, his gaze sweeping over the apartment, taking note of the details she had overlooked, the small personal touches that revealed her careful attentiveness, the life she managed so meticulously despite the constant weight she carried. She exhaled, letting the tension in her chest ease, the silence now feeling protective rather than empty. Derek finally spoke again, quieter, reflective. "There is more to you than the world has allowed to be seen. You manage so much, yet rarely let anyone witness it." Claire's gaze softened, a mixture of relief and cautious understanding settling over her. The soft glow of the streetlights filtered through the curtains, the apartment bathed in a calm light that contrasted with the intensity of the night outside. She reached for her mug of tea, the warmth radiating through her palms, grounding her, and Derek's eyes followed the motion, noting the careful deliberation in her movements, the quiet strength underlying her composed exterior. In that shared silence, a subtle connection formed, one built on mutual observation, respect, and a slowly emerging trust. The night stretched on, the apartment a cocoon of quiet understanding, the faint scent of lavender and warmth of the tea creating a fragile sanctuary. Derek's presence was constant, steady, and unspokenly protective, allowing Claire to process, breathe, and recognize that she was not alone in the vigilance and care she had always carried. The hum of the city outside, distant and softened, contrasted with the closeness in the room, highlighting a delicate balance between independence and support, leaving both aware that the evening, though quiet, marked a turning point in their lives, a moment of shared awareness, safety, and the beginning of cautious trust that would shape the days to come. The early morning light filtered through the partially drawn curtains, painting soft gold lines across the apartment walls. Claire Bennett moved carefully across the room, her fingers brushing against the edge of the table as she prepared a small breakfast, the aroma of toasted bread and brewed tea filling the air. Derek Hawthorne observed from the doorway, silent, his tall frame leaning slightly against the doorframe, the morning light catching the sharp angles of his face and the intensity in his piercing blue eyes. She poured the tea into 2 cups, placing one on the small tray for him, though he had not asked, a subtle acknowledgment of his presence and the quiet trust forming between them. Claire's movements were deliberate, a mixture of routine and self-protection, the careful attentiveness born of years managing the household on her own. Derek's gaze followed each motion, noting the strength in her posture, the precision in her hands, the calm focus despite the lingering tension from the night before. He stepped further into the room, the soft click of his shoes on the hardwood floor blending with the faint hum of the refrigerator, and the distant sounds of the city waking outside. "You do not have to handle everything yourself," he said quietly, his voice low and measured, carrying authority tempered by concern. Claire looked up, the green of her eyes meeting the intensity of his, searching for judgment and finding only an unspoken understanding, a recognition that he saw both her resilience and her vulnerability. She nodded slowly, a small gesture of acknowledgement, and for a moment, the apartment was filled with the quiet rhythm of their breathing, the distant city sounds, and the subtle warmth of sunlight spilling across the floor. Derek moved closer to the table, his presence steady and deliberate, creating a sense of safety without overstepping, a silent support that allowed her to continue the small rituals of mourning without tension. Claire picked up the cup of tea, feeling the warmth seep into her palms, grounding her, while Derek's eyes remained on her, alert yet calm, taking in the subtle expressions, the way her shoulders relaxed minutely, the slight ease in her hands as she held the cup. She set the cup back down, folding her hands in her lap, and Derek's gaze softened, acknowledging the quiet moments of trust that had begun to form. The soft light revealed the faint lines of her face, the evidence of sleepless nights and careful vigilance, and he absorbed the details silently, understanding the weight she carried without need for explanation. Outside, the city grew brighter, cars moving along wet streets, the hum of life beginning anew, and inside, the apartment remained a haven of calm observation and unspoken communication. Claire exhaled slowly, the tension in her chest easing, and Derek stepped just a fraction closer, offering a presence that was steady, reliable, and protective, the balance of distance and support creating a fragile sense of security. The warmth of the tea, the soft morning light, and the quiet attention Derek provided combined to create a shared space where Claire could relax even slightly, sensing that for the first time in a long while, she was not alone, and that the vigilance she had maintained for years could be shared, if only in small, careful increments. As she sipped the tea, the subtle understanding between them grew, the silent acknowledgement that her strength and his protection could coexist, and that this morning, though ordinary in appearance, marked another step in. The careful unfolding of trust and companionship between them. The soft hum of the city outside was a distant murmur, almost lost beneath the quiet intimacy of the apartment where Claire Bennett moved with measured grace, straightening cushions and smoothing the folds of a blanket over the armchair. Derek Hawthorne remained near the kitchen doorway, hands clasped behind his back, his gaze steady and deliberate, taking in the small domestic details that spoke of her diligence and care, the traces of hours spent maintaining a life under constant pressure. The morning sunlight had grown warmer, spilling across the hardwood floors and illuminating the faint scar tissue on her forearms, a silent testament to challenges she had endured alone. She paused, hands hovering over the blanket, and noticed the subtle shift in Derek's stance, the way he leaned slightly forward, attentively, yet respectfully, giving her space while conveying his quiet watchfulness. "It is not necessary to carry all of this on your own," he said, his voice calm, but imbued with authority, resonating through the room without demanding compliance. Claire lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes, and for the first time, she felt the possibility of sharing her burdens without fear or judgment. She took a breath, the familiar rhythm of her chest calming against the tension that had gripped her since nightfall. Derek stepped closer, each movement deliberate, his presence like a steady anchor, a subtle energy that seemed to fill the room with a sense of protection rather than pressure. Claire continued her small tasks, arranging the books and adjusting the light that filtered through the sheer curtains, feeling the warmth of both the sun and the unspoken understanding between them. The baby slept soundly in the crib, the faint soft breathing blending into the quiet cadence of the apartment, grounding her as she allowed herself a moment of reflection. Derek's voice broke the silence again, softer now, a measured encouragement. "There is strength in acknowledging the need for support, not weakness." Claire nodded slightly, the words resonating deeply, as if a veil had been lifted from the constant tension she carried. The apartment seemed to breathe with them, the quiet hum of life, the faint scent of tea, and the soft warmth of morning light creating a cocoon of fragile trust. She felt the subtle relief of not being scrutinized, of being observed with care and respect rather than suspicion or judgment. Derek's eyes remained on her, noting the careful precision in her movements, the quiet patience she maintained, and the small gestures that revealed both her independence and her vulnerability. Claire exhaled slowly, the tension easing further, a delicate balance forming between vigilance and comfort, awareness and calm. Outside, the city began its morning stirrings, the faint sound of tires on wet pavement and distant voices reaching the apartment windows. Yet inside, the room remained a sanctuary of understanding, attentiveness, and unspoken protection. She straightened the blanket one last time and looked up at Derek, their eyes meeting in a brief, shared recognition of the moment's significance, a quiet acknowledgment that trust, however tentative, was beginning to take root. The apartment held the warmth of sun, the faint scent of tea, and the subtle hum of normalcy. And within that space, Claire realized that the presence standing quietly across from her was not only a witness, but a willing participant in the careful building of safety, connection, and the first threads of partnership that might carry them both through the days ahead. The afternoon sun poured through the windows, casting a golden glow across the apartment, highlighting the subtle imperfections of the walls and the careful order in which Claire Bennett had arranged the space. She moved slowly, folding laundry, her hands steady but mindful of every movement, the faint scar tissue along her forearms catching the light and reminding her of the resilience that had carried her through countless days alone. Derek Hawthorne remained near the kitchen island, arms crossed lightly, observing without intrusion, his presence steady, a constant yet unobtrusive support. The apartment was filled with small sounds, the soft rustle of fabric, the distant hum of traffic beyond the windows, the occasional coo from the baby monitor, and together, those noises formed a quiet rhythm that underscored the fragile calm of the space. Claire paused, letting her gaze drift to the window, the city below moving in its usual relentless pace, and for the first time, she allowed herself a thought that the outside world might not always have to be navigated alone. Derek's voice, calm and measured, cut through the quiet. There is a strength in admitting you need help, in allowing someone to stand beside you. She turned to look at him, green eyes reflecting a mixture of surprise and tentative trust, and found nothing but the steady intensity that had become familiar over the past hours. He stepped closer, not abruptly, but with a deliberate ease that filled the space without crowding it, a presence both grounding and reassuring. Claire resumed folding the laundry, each motion deliberate, almost meditative, and Derek's gaze followed her, noting the subtleties of her gestures, the rhythm of her movements, the care she took in every small detail. Outside, the sun dipped lower, painting the city in warmer hues, and the apartment seemed to stretch in quiet agreement, the shadows lengthening but the warmth remaining, soft and protective. Derek's voice was softer now, reflective, almost intimate, yet still carried the unmistakable weight of authority and awareness. You do not have to face the challenges of the world alone, Claire. There is a way forward, step by step. Claire nodded almost imperceptibly, her hands stilling over the folded clothes, the words resonating in a quiet corner of her mind where hope had begun to flicker. The room was silent save for the small, constant hum of everyday life, the faint ticking of a clock, the gentle breathing of the baby in the crib, and the unspoken acknowledgment between them that trust was being built, fragile but real. She straightened, taking a small step toward the living area, feeling the subtle warmth of sunlight on her skin, and Derek followed, maintaining a respectful distance, allowing her autonomy while silently communicating his support. Each moment passed with a careful balance of observation, patience, and shared space, the ordinary tasks of the afternoon imbued with an extraordinary weight of connection and understanding. Claire realized that the apartment, once a place of solitary vigilance, now carried the presence of someone who could witness her strength and vulnerability without judgment. Derek's eyes held a quiet intensity, his posture relaxed yet alert, a subtle reassurance that he would act if necessary, but would also allow her the space to maintain control over her environment. The golden light shifted as the sun continued its descent, and within the apartment, the air was heavy with quiet promise, a tentative sense of partnership forming, a delicate bridge between independence and trust, leaving Claire with the awareness that this day, though ordinary and routine, marked a turning point in how she would navigate the challenges ahead, knowing she was no longer entirely alone. The late afternoon light shifted to a soft amber, spilling across the apartment and highlighting the careful order that Claire Bennett maintained in her living space. She moved quietly, collecting dishes from the small breakfast tray, the scent of tea still lingering faintly, mingling with the warmth of the room. Derek Hawthorne remained near the doorway, watching with a quiet intensity that neither pressured nor intruded, his tall frame silhouetted against the fading light. Claire placed the dishes in the sink, her hands deliberate and controlled, the subtle scars along her forearms catching the light in gentle relief, reminders of the strength she had carried alone for so long. Derek took a measured step closer, the soft sound of his shoes against the hardwood floor punctuating the silence, and his gaze followed each careful motion, absorbing the details of her routine, the small gestures of self-reliance that spoke volumes about the life she had managed. "You do not need to carry everything alone," he said softly, his voice steady, deliberate, a quiet assertion that did not demand but offered reassurance. Claire looked up, meeting his piercing blue eyes, searching for judgment and finding only recognition and understanding, a subtle acknowledgment that she had been seen and valued. She allowed herself a small exhale, the tension in her shoulders easing as she recognized the steadiness in his presence, the calm assurance that he would act if necessary while respecting her autonomy. Outside, the city had taken on a golden glow as the sun continued its descent, the distant hum of cars and faint chatter reaching the apartment in softened tones, blending with the quiet domestic sounds within. Derek stepped slightly closer, creating a space that was both protective and non-intrusive, his presence a reminder that she could trust the moment, the apartment, and him. Claire resumed arranging the cushions on the couch, her movements thoughtful, precise, and in rhythm with the soft settling of the room around her. Derek observed the subtle flex of her fingers, the careful attention she gave to every detail, noting both the strength and vulnerability intertwined in her posture and expressions. "There is courage in allowing yourself to be seen," he said, his voice quiet but firm, carrying the weight of experience and the promise of support. Claire paused, considering the words, the warmth of the room, and the sense of safety that had quietly grown between them, a fragile trust that had not been present the night before. She glanced toward the baby monitor, the faint sound of gentle breathing filling the room, and then back at Derek, feeling the subtle presence that had become a quiet anchor. The apartment seemed to breathe with them, the ambient light and soft domestic sounds creating a cocoon of calm, awareness, and mutual understanding. Derek's gaze remained fixed on her, attentive and measured, a silent commitment to watch over without overstepping, to stand near without taking control, a presence that reassured without suffocating. Claire adjusted a small throw pillow, the simple motion grounding her, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel the possibility of shared responsibility, of relief from solitude, without relinquishing control. The golden light shifted, shadows lengthening, and in that quiet, sunlit apartment, a delicate balance of independence, trust, and cautious partnership was established, a foundation that promised stability and connection in the days to come, leaving both aware that the presence of the other had quietly transformed the ordinary space into one of safety, observation, and unspoken understanding.